pase, pierna derecha, directo al arco, ¡golazo! ¡Golazo!
The world of football with a soccer perspective. This is Soccer Today with Duane Rollins and Kevin Laramée, live on the Sports Podcasting Network.
Good day, good night, and welcome to this special edition of Soccer Today. For today, we are the Two Solitudes Soccer Podcast on a free preview for this historical week. Two Solitudes Soccer Podcast is a premium podcast that is available for $2 a month through Patreon at patreon.com/sportspodcasting network. And this is where Duane Rollins and I, Kevin Laramée, covered the Canadian Premier League, Canadian soccer in depth. And we're behind the paywall. Actually, no, we're in front of the paywall for this week, going back behind the paywall next week. But first of all, Duane, how you doing today?
I'm doing well. Just so people don't think we're trying to gouge you out of $2 a month, that $2 really helps us do everything. It helps us support Soccer Today. It helps us remain independent. So we appreciate those that do subscribe, and we would appreciate any more support that anyone can provide us. $2 a month. That's patreon.com/sportspodcasting network.
Yeah, and this is where it gets really helpful, your help, like weeks like this week where we had some technical difficulty, and because of the amount of patrons that we do have, I was able to replace an important part on a laptop, and we're back with good audio quality, the best we can have for now. But Duane, this is the week the Canadian Premier League starts. This is the Canadian Premier League preview show, years in the making.
Years. I was in high school when the Canadian Premier League, the Canadian Soccer League still existed. So, which I just aged myself a little bit there, but still, I was a kid, man. And I didn't honestly think that I would ever have the opportunity to preview a other Canadian professional soccer league. I podcasted through the years when they did a study, when the Canadian Soccer Association hired people, they studied it for a year, and the recommendations came back, and the recommendations were, this won't work. But here we are. They're going to try to defy expectations, try to make sure it works, and that's a wonderful thing, because you know what? You don't get anything in life unless you try, right? And here we are, a few days away.
That's very true. You, as a great hockey player once said, you miss 100% of the shot you don't take, and not having your own league is a shot you're not taking. And they're taking the shot. Millions of dollars of investment later. It's year one, so I think we do have to damper expectations, damper our romantic idea of what this league should be or what this league could be in the future, and realize it's the first step of a 1,000 years journey. So you do have to keep in mind there will be some hiccups. There'll be things that are not going to go the way we want. There's things that will make some fans not happy. And I think it's important to keep in mind that it is just the beginning, and the league won't be what it is at the beginning. There'll be hiccups, but I think it's important to not necessarily always support or support, yes, defend, I don't know. But you do have to keep in mind that it is a beginning. It is the start of a league, and there are bound to be some issues.
Look, I will give you a 100% guarantee. At Saturday at around 3 o'clock, someone will go on social media and they will talk about how much the Canadian Premier League sucks. They will say, the players, blah, 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 blah. They'll do all that stuff because you know what? North American soccer fans, that's just what they do.
Duane, they're still doing it from MLS. Like every single game I watch on my TV from Major League Soccer, and then you go on social media, you always find that one comment that is exactly what you're talking about.
No, because no one in the Premier League has ever given away the ball. No keeper in the Premier League has ever made a mistake. Never. It's never happened because those people watch them on TV and they are the epitome of brilliance. You know what? They're better. They are. We know this, but the reality is that a lot of those quote unquote experts that talk about how much this league sucks and that league sucks, really there's some confirmation bias that's happening there, is what I'll say. And look, the quality of play in the first year, I think it's going to be, I don't want to put a level on it, but it's going to be a little bit better than the critics think, and it's probably going to be a little bit worse than the dreamers want. But it doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter, especially in the first year. It's just about getting this thing started, laying down the roots. The most important things that are going to happen in the next few months are that there's going to be soccer culture created in 7 different cities. There will be people. There was a tweet that I retweeted from from a Philadelphia Union player, so forgive me for the MLS reference, that talked about how in 2010, as a kid, his mom took him to a game, and then he debuted for them last week. And forgive me, I don't have his name in front of me, so I don't remember. He's a keeper. That's going to happen in this league. There will be 10-year-olds that go to the games in the next couple months that in 10 years, or 9 years in this case, I guess, will be 19 years old, and they will debut for one of these teams. And that's what this is about more than anything else. I think, and I talked about this to someone the other day at the end of the derby. I was talking with this with a Manchester fella who's actually going to go to the first game, and I always find that interesting that the people that weren't born in this country are more easily influenced to support the league because they understand. They get it.
Because they get it. They're like, okay, yeah, this is the highest level here. Okay, we get it. We're going to support it.
Yeah, it's a local league. It's like, the conference or whatever, Anyway, he was sort of suggesting that, well, that's kind of the point I'm making. It's that he supports this league, and he thinks that this league is a good idea, and that he doesn't know what the level is going to be, and he thinks, yeah, it might not be great, but it will be fine. It will help players along, and that is what this is about. And sorry, I remember, I lost my train of thought for a second there. What we were talking about is how I think, and he agreed with me, Canadian Premier League kind of has an advantage in a way over MLS, and the fact that the Canadian Premier League doesn't have any delusions of grandeur. No one in the Canadian Premier League is ever going to make a statement that we're going to become one of the best leagues in the world by X date. That will never happen.
Aw, man, are you serious? That's why I'm coming on board, because I want to have York 9 versus Forge FC in front of 75,000 people in the corner of 2 highways and nothing else in the York region.
Yeah, but the reason that's an advantage is because it will allow this league to do what matters, which is to give opportunities for young players. I love Major League Soccer. I do. I enjoy it a great deal. It will always be part of my sporting landscape environment. But what MLS does wrong is it tries to be an entertainment product more than it tries to be a development league. And I don't think there are many Americans out there that would argue against it. Yes, they're doing things on the development side, but that's really as much about the finances as it is about actually developing the sport. Whereas I think this league, coming in the way it does, coming in so late, has seen everything, and I've said this before, has seen everything that MLS has done right and everything that MLS has done wrong, and can replicate that in both cases. And this is a case, I believe, on the development side, where it will replicate it in a positive way. They already have rules in place that you have to play a certain amount of Canadians per every game. They already have rules in place that you have to play a certain amount of young players every game. And these are the right choices for a league of this size, of this stature, a league that will never even get to where Major League Soccer is right now in terms of overall quality. But that's fine, as long as we produce players in this league that go on to play above Major League Soccer's level eventually.
But the thing is those teams won't play outside of their own level for a while. It's not like we're going to have a lot of games of them versus the Impact or them versus a Mexican League team. We won't have a conversation of, is the Canadian Premier League finally catching up to Liga MX in the CONCACAF? No, that's not what it's about. But in this very microcosm, everyone's on the same playing field.
Excuse me.
Bless you. Everyone's on the same level playing field where it doesn't matter what you did before. It doesn't matter what you do after. It matters what happens in this league this season for the results of this league. And even though you might not see Panenkas on every single game, it's okay. It's the same for everyone in this league. And it will look great. You won't just notice the deficiencies, whatever those could be, either on the field, off the field. When the whistles blows, you look at the ball being kicked around and the tactics and the formation and the scheme. It's a game. You're going to get drawn into the game. And it won't matter that it's a level that is not the best, because a game is a game, and that's all it matters.
I worked for League One Ontario for 3 years, and I watched a lot of League One Ontario games. And League One Ontario is a semi-pro level, semi-pro in name only. It's mostly an amateur league. I don't think there's anyone paid in that league. There might be this year. In fact, I believe that probably will change this year now that the Canadian Premier League is involved. That there will be the occasional player that is loaned down there that does actually get a salary. But the reality is, and what I'm trying to say here, it's hella entertaining at times. I mean, there's bad games too. There will be bad Canadian Premier League games. Let's just be honest here, right? There's bad Major League Soccer games. There's bad Premier League games.
So what's the expression though? There's a rainy, cold Tuesday night in Stokes. This is the Premier League, the English Premier League equivalent. What is it? Is it on a cold and snowy day in Winnipeg? Can you do it on a Wednesday in Winnipeg, Duane?
Of course, yeah, maybe. Let's hope. But there's going to be great games in the Canadian Premier League too. Is the other side of that coin. In fact, this league being a development league, being a league where not every player is as polished as you want, you might actually get more scoring. You might actually get more entertainment. And if you put it, and I understand no one listening to this podcast is not the target audience that I'm going for here.
Sure,
but
true.
If you're talking to your buddy who is like, oh, it's not La Liga, then tell him to get his head out of his elbow and just try and enjoy sports for sports. Because you know what? Whenever you have two teams at the equal standing, it doesn't matter if they're 12-year-old kids. If they're on equal standing and they're both playing hard and playing to win, then it's going to be entertaining. It's entertaining if you love sports. And I think that this is going to be a very entertaining league at times. And it's going to be, a crap league at times too. Yeah. But it's like every league is.
Like every league is, though. It's always the same. People talk about La Liga. Yeah, clearly you haven't watched a game between, I don't know, Getafe and Malaga recently, right? No, exactly, because it's the same. There's some good games and there's some bad games everywhere. Now, let's get to the part of the show, Duane, where we put our head, we stick our head out and expose ourselves to laughery, I guess. The prediction aspect of the Canadian Premier League preview show. We're going to predict a standings, and I have to be honest here, full disclosure, this was probably the hardest prediction show I've ever had to do because I'm predicting things I haven't seen before. So there it is.
Yeah, well, yeah, like we do a Major League Soccer prediction show every year. I think we actually do a Premier League prediction show as well. Those are a little easier because you have something to base it on, and this will be a little bit easier next year at this time. But yeah, I have talked to people that were in the Dominican Republic that saw these teams play. Sometimes play against each other. I have I have a good deal of knowledge of the League One Ontario guys that are in the league. I have a surface knowledge of some of the other guys. So we're gonna wing this. We're gonna see what we can do, and we could be completely off base. I'm pretty confident with my teams. I would be confident Kevin's putting teams in groups, saying these teams will be good, these teams might struggle. But
yeah,
in terms of actually putting them in position, it's a bit challenging. But we're gonna do it anyway. Caveat to this, I don't know how you did this, Kevin, but I sort of just looked at this as both spring and fall seasons together, or open and close seasons.
Yeah, me too. Me too. I just did 1 to 7 ranking. So let's just say the champion, and then wherever team finishes at the end of season 1.
Yeah, exactly. It's sort of what the combined points will be is sort of where I'm doing this. These are my power rankings, I suppose, is what you're going to what some people might call it.
Yep. Yeah, it's true. So let's call it that way. This is the first of a recurring segment, I guess, this year. The 2019 Power Rankings on the Two Solitudes Soccer Podcast. And here goes my number 7 before a game is played again. And this is due to an injury to a key player This is due to my personal lack of knowledge on them, and I could be way off on this, and I've heard good things about this group of players too, but there's 7 teams. There's bound to be one at number 7, and it's Pacific FC for me.
Someone's going to finish last, Kevin.
Exactly.
Finish last.
That's a guarantee. I guarantee you that someone finishes number 7 this year.
Actually, for the record, if you've never listened to one of our previous shows, Kevin and I do not talk before. We don't know what each other is going to do, although I know he's going to pick Kansas City to win MLS Cup because he just does. But other than that, we don't talk. I have Pacific 7th too, and I'll tell you why, Kevin. It's because I've talked to people, and I've been told point blank that the entire league is not only concerned about Pacific FC, they are a little irritated at them too, because they're not, of all of the teams that are currently, there's 6 teams that are currently standing in line and doing everything to grow this league, and then there's a team on an island. And
figuratively and literally.
Exactly, and Pacific is that team on the island, and they only have 17 players in the roster. They spent a lot of
17. Okay, let's be honest here. They have 7. It takes you 18 players to play a game. You can play with 17, but you have one less sub. That's a bit interesting, to be honest.
Yeah, the reason they are struggling to fill out this roster is because of Marcel de Jong's injury.
And the money that they paid for him, and now that he's not available for the entire season with a ruptured Achilles tendon, yeah, that is a monkey in the wrench.
Yeah, and they did not get any relief on their cap for that, and I know that. I've talked to people at the league that have told me that. So
it's a terrible, it's bad luck though. Like, to be honest, first week of training camp a month and a half ago, Marcel de Jong suffered a big injury, season-ending injury per se. Who knows if you can ever come back from it? It takes sometimes 12 to 16 months at least for an Achilles tendon injury to make you come back fully healed. And what a blow for Pacific FC, though. Like, their biggest player, what we're going to be their mainstream name in the world of soccer, especially in the British Columbia area, and the fact that he's a high salary versus his other teammate probably too. Yeah, that's a big blow, though. It's almost like you start this season already with 3-4 losses for Pacific FC.
Yeah, well, Pacific FC is built in the way of the 2008 LA Galaxy, right? They're top heavy. They signed a couple bigger players that other teams passed on, possibly because they would have cost too much and they would not have been able to build a roster out from there. They don't have a lot of depth. Basically, I'll be more positive about this. The way Pacific FC is successful is if they can play a consistent style, that they can play direct, I believe, and that they can use Marcus Haber in an effective sort of way for him to play on his strength. I have doubts that they'll be able to do that, but like any team in this league, they could completely, betray our prediction right now by just, coaching them up, by playing above their level. But when you look at their depth pieces, it's a lot of Whitecaps Academy, I don't want to say rejects, but
graduates.
We'll call them, graduates. Let's call them graduates.
Because when you graduate from an academy, means you didn't make the first team. So,
well, yeah, which isn't a slight on anyone in Major League Soccer.
No, they're
very, very few people do, but yeah.
All right. So we both have Pacific FC in our 7th position in our first power rankings. The pre-week 1 rankings on the Two Solitudes Soccer Podcast. Number 6 for me, Duane, is Valor FC. I love Rob Gale. I've followed his coaching career for the last few years with the Canada U20s and now with Valor FC. We had him on the show. I've had the pleasure to talk to him when he was in Laval for the CanPL trials a few months ago. But for me, it's a bit of the same reasoning behind Pacific FC. The roster itself, there's a lot of unknown for us. We haven't seen them play. There is the aspect of a bit more difficulty to attract players to come to Winnipeg, a bit like Halifax. But Halifax has that romantic ocean shore, the harbor aspect to it that has helped But for me, for Valor FC, it's going to be a difficult acclimatization to the Canadian Premier League. I could be way wrong again right here. I could be way off, but I do sense it's not going to be easy for Valor.
I actually have. We'll do it this way. I have Winnipeg fifth, so one position above where you have them. So I also see them struggling. That said, I think they're talented. I think there's a lot of offensive, especially in the midfield, talent on this team. I like kind of their Latin approach to things. I like what Rob Gale has done in terms of building this roster. But what caused me to drop them down in the rankings was talking to people that saw them play, that have actually seen them play. And consistently, the voices that I heard that were in DR said they looked disjointed. They were imbalanced. They didn't have a good – their makeup wasn't right. There was something wrong with them. Now, preseason, we can overrate results in that, for sure, 100%. And they could betray this. And as I said, I do think there's talent on this team. But from what I heard – from what was going on in preseason, Winnipeg, there are many people that told me that they were the worst team they saw down there. So take that for what it's worth. That's why I dropped them considerably down my preseason rankings, because I actually have, I think they're, in terms of on paper, they're one of the more talented teams in the league, but there are holes in how they're playing. They're not playing in a way that makes people believe that they can be competitive, at least in the spring season. What are we calling spring open? I don't know, whatever, the first half. So I have Winnipeg in fifth, Kevin. Do you want to go with your fifth team, or do you want me to jump to my sixth?
Mention your sixth first, and then I'll go fifth, so we can just move on from there.
All right, my sixth place team is Halifax. There's just too much of a talent gap there. They have too many inexperienced players. Really, Halifax, what I have heard, again, from people that were in the Dominican Republic, is that they are very organized and they won't probably allow a lot of goals. But there's a talent gap. There's a sort of the teams are just better. Like, they're just more talented, more experienced than them. So they feel that Halifax probably they're Cincinnati, to do an MLS example here. They're not going to be great. They probably won't be horrible, but they're not going to be great.
So they're like the Montreal Impact in 2012, where they finished sixth, just outside the playoff in that year. Not great, but not bad either.
Yeah, there's just a talent gap, as we said. Now, look, this is the caveat I'll give, and again, I've given it already, but I'll especially give it to Halifax, because I think Stephen Hardy is a quite talented coach, and a coach that a lot of players will run through a wall for. If he can coach up those inexperienced players, those rookies, pure rookies that have never played professionally before, then Halifax could go higher. But right now, on paper, it is hard for me to see them any higher than second from last.
Yeah, and we'll see where I put Halifax a bit further. But you have the TNT players and I would say the Caribbean players, the Caribbean contingent that are with Halifax mixed with a few Canadians that could bring some potential. So we'll see where I put them. We'll move to my fifth position in this power rankings, Cavalry FC. I love Tommy Wheeldon Jr. as a person. We had him on the show multiple times. Very eloquent, very smart, experienced, and it's going to bring a lot. But for me, there's going to be a talent gap there too, and it's Cavalry FC in fifth position. For me, I think you're gonna see that FC Edmonton will be a bit better than Cavalry, and they'll be the second in that rivalry. And for me, Cavalry, they're gonna have some good moments, and this is a combined standings, right? So they might have either a very good spring or fall season. This could change, but again, a lot of unknowns, and my knowns are in the teams higher than them, with players that I have more info on them, that I'm more aware of their past experiences. But Cavalry, number 5 for me.
I'll wait to talk about Calgary much later in this conversation.
So that's what I mean. I could be totally off on this, or you could, or that's the beautiful thing of a new league too. Is this is only going to happen once in our lives, Wayne, where we're going to do a standings of a team that we haven't seen before.
Precisely, yeah. So do you want? Well, I'll go to my number 4. So I guess I'll lead now. I have Edmonton at 4. I think Edmonton. way back when we did like who's going to be the most disappointing, what's going to be the most disappointing thing about the Canadian Premier League was a question that we had in one of these previous shows, and I said Edmonton, and the reason I said Edmonton is because you would think a team that had a previous history coming in would be more successful. I don't think they're going to be unsuccessful, but there's just not a lot about that roster. It's a pretty young roster too, that makes me jump up and go, whoa. I have trouble, like, honestly, I have trouble formulating an opinion about them in some ways. I don't think they're bad. I don't think they're good. I just think they're going to be there in the middle in both halves of the season. So that's why I have them literally in the middle of my standings.
Yeah. Mine is Halifax, so not too far off from your prediction. Mine is number 4. I do see potential with the likes of Zachary Secunda, Vincent Lamy, Shakib Hossein, and others that are with Halifax. There's the TNT contingent. There's a Stephen Hart. But travel will be an obstacle to overcome for the Wanderers. And I guess a successful season for the Wanderers would be mid-table because of the transportation aspect, because of the isolation aspect, the little more difficulty of recruitment. So for me, Halifax number 4 would actually be a successful season for the Wanderers.
Well, 100% it would be. I don't think anyone, even those that are Halifax dreamers, have them near the top. Well, that's a lie. I have seen people that predict them very much near the top. I'm not sure what they're basing that on, to be honest. But nonetheless,
it's more, those are more subjective rankings.
Yeah, I think everyone's a little subjective in the rankings right now, but for sure, I think 4th would be a decent season for Halifax. So I guess that will lead us to a number 3, and this is a team that I think a lot of people are, especially Canadian soccer, are a little conflicted by, because they're not exactly thrilled with some of the stuff that's going on around this team. But at the same time, if you live on a gold mine, you're bound to find some nuggets, is how I'll put it. Really, the most talent-rich part of the entire country is York. York 9 is where I have number 3. I think there's just too much talent in their depth positions for them to be near the bottom of the table. I don't know whether they completely know what they're doing in terms of getting to the top of the table.
Or coaching their team?
Yeah, well, Carm, if you know Carm,
Carm's a coach. Oh, okay. Let's be clear now. No offense to Jimmy Brennan, but Carmine Salvo is the soccer head here.
Yeah, for sure. And you know, if you don't know who Carm is, he has, you know, he's probably the best amateur coach in Ontario. I'll say Ontario. I don't want to talk about the rest of the country, but where I know he's been well known as the best. He's a fiery fella too. You'll hear him on the sidelines. Trust me, you'll learn some new words too. But
you'll learn some Italian words too. You're like, okay, all right. Should I Google that?
Yeah, no, probably. Well, not if you have safe search on. Don't. But yeah. Like I said, if you live on a gold mine, you're going to find some nuggets, and York 9 has found some nuggets in there, and I do believe that they are going to be a very strong team in the first year. I don't see them at the top, but I certainly see them in competition for one of those top positions most of the year. And that first game, you'll note who I haven't mentioned already, is going to be pretty competitive, I believe.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree with you, and we'll get to York 9 for me in a few minutes. My number 3 in this year 1 rankings before like the first game, again, number 3 FC Edmonton, just because of a certain chemistry of players already, either from the academy side or from playing together in the professional side. I think that familiarity will give you a few points along the season, and that could be enough to sustain a top 3 positioning in the league. And I think the fact that it's a 7-team league, if it goes the way I think, FC Edmonton is going to have a few wins over Valor or for Pacific. So if you beat the same opponent a few times, it does pad your record, and I think FC Edmonton will finish 3rd. Yeah,
we are talking about a 17 league here, so 3rd is kind of mid-table-ish. So, but nonetheless, you know, Edmonton, as we've talked about, I have trouble formulating an opinion on, but I had them 4th, so we're not too far off that.
We're actually pretty close, always like one off of each other, which is reassuring to me, which means my picks are not necessarily out of left field.
Well, yeah, there's one outlier, which we're going to get to in a minute.
All right, so you're number 2.
My number 2 is Forge FC. I think they're talent rich for sure. A lot of people are going to pick them as the champions, and I don't have an argument with that. I just like the other team a little bit more. I think Forge has a player in Kyle Becker, which could be a real breakout star in this. We're going to talk about breakout stars in a minute. I don't have him as my breakout because it's too easy to pick him. But there's just a lot of talent there, and there's a lot of money behind this program as well. I think that even though there is a salary budget in place, that there is some other ways that you can use your financial might to your benefit, and certainly I think Hamilton has done that. I think it's a first-class organization, and I could absolutely see them playing in that championship game come the end of the year. Forge, my number 2 pick.
All right. My number 2 is York 9 for the same reasons as you, but I do feel that the roster and the talent pool is going to be there. And I think we're going to see some surprising results coming from York 9. And I think the familiarity of a lot of the players that are coming from York University to play for York 9, the fact they play in the same stadium with the same coach, they have an advantage that other teams don't have. And I truly feel this is sometimes, you're talking about marginal gains in a year 1 of a league where it might not be such a difference between number 1 and number 4. So all those marginal games do add up, and York 9 can get a few of those. So York 9, number 2 for me.
Fair enough. My pick for the first Canadian Premier League champion is Cavalry. Cavalry FC. Yeah, it's a difficult thing to say. Cavalry. I believe in what they're doing in Calgary. And look, I think the talent is high. I like the English kid, Brown, they brought in. I really do. I think he's going to be a breakout and a star performer in this league. But the reason I picked them a little bit above the Forge is twofold. First off, I talked to people that saw them in the DR, and to a man, they all said they were the best-looking team down there. So that has highly influenced this pick. But beyond that, a lot of the depth pieces to this team come from the same program that went to the PDL championship game just a couple of years ago, coached by the same guy.
True.
That's
true.
Why I think Cavalry is going to exceed expectations for some people, even though they look at those depth pieces and they go, oh, who are these guys? But they all played together, and it doesn't matter in a league where no one else has played together, right? So that's why I think Calgary is going to be, to me, the favorite to win the championship this year.
And my championship in year 1 of the Canadian Premier League, it's Forge FC. Why? Because I do agree with Duane, but one of our theories that we do talk about on Soccer Today about Major League Soccer too is you're as good as your best players. And for me, Forge FC might have the best players in this league in year 1. I think, of course, Cal Becker is going to be a breakout star in this league. He's going to be able to go back to his offensive days with FC Dallas and TFC. He's going to have a free kick goal in 2019. I can guarantee this to you. But for me, it's David Choignard, too. The former Montreal Impact Academy product will have a breakout year for Forge FC. I think it's going to be a more, I would say, offensive situation for Forge FC. They might have defensive problem, but in a league where you can win 5-4 or 4-3, I think the capacity, the capability to score those 4 goals are going to be important, and I do predict Forge FC to be the best team this year.
Fair enough. And look, I don't disagree in terms of what Forge can do. In a lot of my preseason power rankings, I had them at the top. I had them at the top consistently for a long time. I do believe that they clearly on paper have some of the best top-end talent, so we don't disagree there.
And tactically speaking, they have a coach with experience as well, with Coach Bobby Smirnianis, so I think there's going to be a lot of happy fans in Hamilton, which is going to be where the first game happens, Duane, and here it is for the first time ever on our screen, the Canadian Premier League schedule right here on your screen. Saturday, April 27th, Forge FC, York 9 at 1 p.m. Eastern. Duane, who wins the first game?
I think it's gonna be. I think there's gonna be goals. That's what I'll say. I mean, obviously, I slightly picked Hamilton above York, and they are at home. Although, is there a home advantage when you've never played a home game before? I don't know.
It's foreign for everyone. That's the thing.
Let's go with a very high scoring, entertaining game, 2-2. That's what I'm going to predict. 2-2, Forge and York 9. That Hamilton goes out early, gets a quick goal. Let's go. Kyle Becker scores the first ever goal in the Canadian Premier League history. Runs to the corner flag. The Barton battalions are going crazy. It'll be a brilliant moment.
And gets injured.
Fights back.
Gets injured, and it's the most Kyle Becker thing ever. No, I hope that doesn't happen because I really like Kyle Becker. Always enjoyed interviewing Kyle Becker in his Montreal Impact days. Forge FC, York 9. I have Forge in a 2-0 victory at home. Bedlam on Barton will be what happens Saturday. Sunday, April 28th. Duane, Pacific FC, the Halifax Wanderers, what could be the biggest away trip in the history of soccer.
It's apparently the third longest, there are two other road trips longer. Both are in the Russian Premier League. So it's going to be quite the game. It's going to be quite entertaining in terms of that factor. I'm sure that they will tell us multiple times in the broadcast about how long the trip was. Who do I think is going to win? I don't know. Let's go with a 0-0 here because, I have both those teams low in my rankings. So I would be remiss. I'm going to say there's not going to be a win in the first weekend of the Canadian Premier League.
And the other game happens before our next show. So it's a busy 4 days for Pacific FC to start the year. And Westhill Stadium, which is finishing to being built right now, it will be ready for Sunday. But Wednesday, May 1st, Pacific FC at home for their second game, this one versus Valor FC at 11 p.m. Eastern Time. I love the late start. That's going to be fun for me. It's a day off. Next Wednesday, Duane, I'm 11 p.m. Eastern. I'm going to be watching One Soccer and some great Canadian content. But who do you got for game number 3? In the Canadian Premier League, Wednesday, May 1st, Pacific FC, Valor?
Well, you can't discount the short week for a team that's never played before, so I'm going to have to go with Valor to get the first victory in the Canadian Premier League history. Let's go with 1-0.
1-0 Valor. I have a 0-0 here. This smells like a 0-0 for me. And there you have it, folks. Our first game preview of the Canadian Premier League. And if you enjoyed what you have just listened to, we are always with you 4 times a month, every Thursdays on patreon.com/sportspodcast. And Network. Duane takes his 10 plus years of covering soccer experience to the Canadian Premier League, 5 plus for myself. We've traveled from Montreal to Mexico to Toronto to Chicago to a lot of other places to cover the beautiful game, but now we're doing it at home in our country. And Duane, this is our league.
It is our league. I've also been to Columbus, and I'm going to France in a month and a half. So there you go. We scour the earth for you and your Canadian Premier League needs. I'm excited about this, Kevin. We don't know what we're talking about. No one does, and that's the brilliant thing. How often will we ever get to see a league launch? And there's one final message I want to put out there. There are a lot of people still to this day that say, the league's going to fold in a year. No, it's not. Good God, it's not. This league is well backed, and the World Cup is coming here in 2026. The league is not folding. Please stop saying that. That is my final message.
Yep, that is a good message. And as always, make sure you follow us on social media. Duane's at 24th Minute, myself at Kev Laramée, and our regular show at Soccer Today SPN. Take the pledge. Help us continue to grow. Help us continue to run and to be able to devote time and money to our coverage of the Canadian Premier League. And you can help us by going to patreon.com/sportspodcast network. Click the donation button. $2 a month will give you access to the 4 shows that we do of the Two Solitudes Soccer Podcast. And it's probably going to be more than 4. 4 is a minimum. And like this week, if we have special content, special interviews, we'll get them out on the Two Solitudes Soccer Podcast, available at patreon.com/sportspodcast network. But until tomorrow for Soccer Today, for Duane, I'm Kevin. We hope you enjoy year 1 and week 1, number 1 in the Canadian Premier League. But until next time, have a great soccer.
You can find the podcast version of all the shows we do on iTunes, Apple Podcast, Google Play Store, TuneIn Radio, iHeartRadio, and anywhere you get your podcast.